Between 2002 and 2013, problem drinking among women increased by 83.7%. That is an eye-opening number. This wasn't among women who hit some visible low. It wasn't among women in the kind of crisis you can point to. It was among women who were functioning, showing up, carrying more than their share. Women who looked from the outside completely fine. I'm going to tell you why this happened and what it has done to our bodies and why women right now are doing something about it that the rest of the culture has not caught up to yet. Before I get into it, one thing I need to say out loud, because it's the reason the show exists. Alcohol has been ubiquitous in our culture. We see it everywhere, and it's been normalized for decades. It was designed, marketed, and sold to exhausted women as if it were relief. You were not weak. You were targeted. We're going to cover 3 things today. What alcohol does inside a woman's body that it is not doing inside the men around her, how an entire industry built something that looked like self-care, and what women are already doing about it faster than anyone expected. Let's start with something your doctor probably never sat you down to explain. Women's bodies process alcohol differently than men's. This difference is not small. Women have less of the enzyme that breaks alcohol down before it reaches the bloodstream. We also carry a higher ratio of body fat to water, which means alcohol concentrates in our systems faster and hits harder. The same drink in the same hour in 2 bodies of similar size produces a higher blood alcohol level in women specifically. There's more strain on the liver and a greater effect on the brain. And the diseases that come from drinking too much, liver disease, heart disease, certain cancers, including breast cancer, arrive sooner and at lower levels of consumption for women than they do men. Think of it this way. 2 people standing in the rain. One in a waterproof jacket, one in a cotton t-shirt. Same rain, but the person in the cotton shirt gets soaked faster, stays cold longer, and has a much harder time recovering. That is the biological reality of every drink women have alongside men. Nobody handed us the cotton t-shirt warning. The guidelines we were given about how much is safe were built almost entirely on research done on men's bodies. I see this in my coaching work all the time. Women come to me having already done the math. They have calculated very carefully that they do not qualify as someone with a problem. They drink less than their friend who drinks a lot. They function. They get the kids to school. By every measure they can apply to themselves, they're fine. What they don't know yet is that the measure they're using was not built for them. The line they have been staying under was drawn for someone else's body. Like I've discussed in other episodes, there is no safe amount of alcohol for anyone. Full stop. However, when we look at how men and women are consuming alcohol, there is a much greater risk to a woman's biology than a man who is sitting right across from her. Now, once you know this, everything else I'm going to tell you makes sense. Because the numbers I'm about to share are going to shock you, because they shocked me. The data I'm going to share with you is data that most people in this space are not citing. Not because it doesn't exist, but because it's uncomfortable to say out loud. From 2000 to 2015, cirrhosis death rates for women between 25 and 45 years old increased 18%. For men in the same age range over the same years, those numbers actually decreased 10%. So women went up and men went down. For women between 45 and 64, the cirrhosis death rates increased 57% in 15 years. During the first year of the pandemic, women increased their heavy drinking days by 41% and men only by 7%. Women who turned 35 between 2018 and 2019 were nearly 60% more likely to report binge drinking or alcohol use disorder symptoms than women who turned 35 just 25 years earlier. And the rise has been sharpest among women in their 30s and 40s, the exact decade when most of us are trying to hold together a career, children, aging parents, and some version of ourselves underneath it all. Picture a group of women you know, your friends group, your colleagues, sitting around a table with a bottle of wine that someone opened because it was Tuesday. And Tuesday felt like a good enough reason. None of those women would say they have a problem, but across the table, something is accumulating in livers, in brain tissue, in risk profiles, climbing quietly toward a threshold nobody warned them about. Sharon Wilsnack, one of the leading alcohol researchers in the country, looked at all of this and used a very specific word: epidemic. Not a trend, not a concern, an actual epidemic. If you're in your 30s or 40s, these numbers are not abstract. They are about the decade that you're living in right now. You deserve to make decisions with accurate information. That is the big reason I am telling you this. Knowing the damage is one thing. Knowing who built it is another. And that answer is what changes how you see every glass you've ever poured. Every era has a drug that it gives women to help them endure the load that they are expected to carry without complaint. In the 1960s, it was Valium. Doctors prescribed it to millions of women, not because those women had a diagnosable condition, but because their lives were overwhelming and the medical establishment's answer was a pill to help them tolerate it quietly. The journalist, Olga Kazan, wrote in The Atlantic that alcohol has become the 21st century version of that. The author, Holly Whitaker, put it more directly. Women have been sold coping mechanisms for their daily lot for a long time, she said. Coping mechanisms instead of actual solutions. The wine aisle was designed for you. The labels that say, "You deserve this," and "Girls' Night," and "Mommy's Little Helper" were engineered. Wine glass capacity has increased 7-fold over 300 years. Women now consume 57% of all wine in this country. That didn't happen by accident. I spent years not questioning any of this. The glass at the end of the day was so woven into the architecture of adult life that opting out actually felt strange. It felt almost ungrateful, like refusing something everyone had silently agreed that you earned. And then I started to see it differently, not as something that I had chosen freely, but as something I had been handed. An industry needed me to reach for it. A culture had decided that this is what women who need relief do. The handoff was smooth enough and consistent enough that it never felt like a transaction. That is the thing about a product positioned as self-care. You don't feel sold to, you feel seen. So here is the reframe that this episode is built on. If you built a habit around something that was specifically engineered to feel like relief for women under pressure, that is not a character flaw. That is a successful marketing campaign. Recognizing that is not the same as quitting anything. It is just seeing clearly for the first time. If you want to do more than just see it, if you want someone to help you work through what comes next, I do take a small number of private coaching clients. The link is below in the show notes. Now here is where the story goes somewhere I did not expect. Because the data doesn't end in a crisis, it ends in something that looks like women are waking up. In July of 2025, Gallup published their annual consumption survey. And the headline surprised me. Only 54% of Americans now say they drink alcohol. That's the lowest number in nearly 90 years of Gallup tracking. From 1997 to 2023, that floor held above 60% every single year. But 3 years ago, it broke. The steepest decline is among women. Women's reported drinking fell 11 points in a single year. Young adults between 18 and 34 are at 50% now, which is down from 72% in 2004. For the first time in Gallup's recorded history, a majority of Americans say that even moderate drinking, which is 1 or 2 glasses a day, is bad for health. 60% of women hold that view, and only 47% of men do. What I find remarkable is the sequence of it. Like I stated earlier, women's cirrhosis death rates rose much higher than men. Our bodies absorbed more damage, and now we are stepping back first by a wide margin before the culture caught up to us, before doctors had the full conversation with us, and before anyone made it easy. Something in women recognized the truth before it was confirmed and moved. If you are listening to this show, you're a part of that. You showed up before it was obvious. That is not nothing. If this is the kind of conversation you want more of, hit follow or subscribe wherever you are listening. Every episode goes deeper into what it actually looks like to build a life that you don't need to escape from. I'm not going to ask you to change anything tonight. What I am going to ask is something smaller than that. The next time you reach for a drink, just notice that moment before you reach. Not to necessarily stop yourself, certainly not to judge yourself. Just notice it. To recognize that that motion is automatic and to know that you noticed. Awareness always comes before choice. You cannot choose something different until you see what you are choosing now. That is the whole ask. And if you are already past noticing, if you are further along than just having this curiosity, stay with me because there's more coming. You came into this episode with whatever story you had about your drinking. Maybe it was fine, just stress relief. Nothing to look at too closely. Maybe it was something you had been quietly wondering about for longer than you wanted to admit. Maybe you clicked because the title landed a little too accurately. You are leaving knowing something different. Your body was never on equal footing. The numbers are real, and they are specific to your decade of life. What was sold to you as a reward was a product. And women, right now, without anyone handing them a script for it, are already walking away. None of that requires anything dramatic. It just requires you to see it. The drink was never your reward, it was theirs. Finding your own reward is what this show is about. For me, it's become chasing sunsets over cocktails. As always, I want to thank you for taking this journey with me, and I'm rooting for you.